Greetings, Dave Dickinson here from AstroGuys.com, and I apologize I didn't have a chance to give out a pre-warning for this, but I am attempting to do a periscope, Wi-Fi willing. I'm currently at an Airbnb here in Seville, Spain. We've been in Spain for a couple weeks. I'm going to attempt to join the weekly Space Hangout. Hey, I've got one viewer. Yay, Curry the Vegan has joined. Greetings, we're here in sunny Seville, Spain right now, and we are town. I'm going to try to join the weekly Space Hangout. It is currently 8 p.m. here Central European time. We have not fallen prey to daylight saving time as North America has yet. We're in that odd 2-week period right now where Europe has yet to change forward, whereas most of North America, excepting Hawaii and Arizona, has indeed sprung forward. So now I have to mentally keep in my head that East Coast is only 5 hours ahead, and in a couple weeks from now, we're going to be 6 hours ahead again. It's all crazy. We would all be one time zone if I had my way. But anyway, I'm going to try to join the weekly Space Hangout for the first time since we arrived over here in Europe a couple weeks ago. And the primary things I want to talk about are the ExoMars mission that launched. I wrote an article for Sky and Telescope about that Monday. And we've got 2 comets passing very close here in the next few days that are kind of interesting. There's going to be some interesting talk about them, and they're probably related to 52P linear and BA14 PanSTARRS. First, with the ExoMars mission, successfully lifted off Monday on top of a Proton rocket from Baikonur Cosmodrome. And it's kind of interesting in that they are on their way. All their signals, ESA had all their signals good. It didn't fall prey to getting stuck in Earth orbit like the last Russian launched Phobos Grunt mission did in 2011. And it's going to be arriving in March and October. This is the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, one of 2 ExoMars missions. The next ExoMars mission that is going to be going that way is in 2018, is going to be landing a lander, a rover, on Mars. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter also has the Schiaparelli lander that was designed by Alina Aerospace in concert with Roscosmos. That is going to land in October. It's going to be released 3 days prior to... oh, cool. We got some more viewers coming. Cool. That is going to be 3 days prior to the ExoMars orbiter entering orbit in October. Going to release the lander. The Schiaparelli lander, it's entry and descent module demonstration, meaning that they're going to test, this is the first time that they're going to test all the landing capability and everything they need to land on Mars in 2018. The descent module, the retro rockets, they're going to be testing everything coming into Mars and landing on the mission itself. And this will be the first time that there's actually any mission, if it's successful, it'll be the first time there's been a successful mission landing on Mars, with the exception of all the U.S. missions. The Russian missions had failed. The UK orbiter, the UK Beagle lander had failed back in 2000. Was it 2000, 2001? I know they just the HiRISE imager actually got images of Beagle, the crashed Beagle lander. The U.S. has actually had a pretty good track record landing on Mars. Ironically, the Russians have done well at Venus. We've never landed on Venus. They've landed and returned images from the surface, which is a much tougher environment to operate in. The U.S. has landed, I believe it's 8 times they've attempted on Mars, and 7 have been successful. The only one that wasn't successful was the Mars Polar Lander, so this will finally maybe break that streak. Incidentally, I don't really count the Mars 3. I know there's some discussion about this in my Sky and Telescope post, and I mentioned it briefly. Russia did land the Mars 3 probe. It returned data for like 15 seconds before it shut off. It didn't really return any usable pictures from the surface. Hi, David. After checking on today's weekly Space Hangout, I have to ask, you got any good dance moves? I don't know. This is late Friday night for me over here in Spain, so you never know what might transpire. We've got about 20 minutes before the weekly Space Hangout goes on. Other thing I want to talk about is we have a bright comet, 252P linear. This is a periodic comet, hence the P designation, and is in a 5.4-year orbit discovered back in 2000. And it usually hadn't really stirred up much interest. Comets have to be brighter than 10th magnitude, where I say they're kind of in binocular range and general amateur interest range. This one, however, this past week is going to have a very close approach to Earth, for a comet anyway, one of the fifth closest approaches. And this comet actually decided to brighten up. And there's something interesting going on with this comet because there is another fragment in a very similar orbit that was just recently discovered, BA14 PanSTARRS. Incidentally, they thought that was an asteroid at first until the Discovery Channel telescope outside of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff discovered that it has a comma, a spiky tail. It's got all the characteristics of a tiny comet. This is probably the fragment of this same 252P linear. Now, 252P linear, let me get the numbers out. It's going to be on March 21st. Fifth closest comet approach ever recorded is going to be 14 times the distance of the moon, and it's going to approach the Earth by 5.4 million kilometers. So that's pretty decent. And this BA14 PanSTARRS is even closer, approaching at 9 lunar distances and 3.5 million kilometers, also on that night of March 21st, 22nd. Now, the folks over at the Virtual Telescope, hosted by astronomer Gianluca Massi, are going to be doing a live broadcast of the close passage of BA14 PanSTARRS. And this will be the second closest comet ever recorded to approach. And this is the closest cometary approach we've had for several hundred years. It's unfortunate that this comet fragment is so tiny because it's only going to reach like 12th magnitude. So you got to have a really big telescope. And the moon is going toward full right 100 times, from magnitude 11 up to magnitude 5.5 I saw this morning on the Comet Observers database. COBS, or Comet Observers database, is a very interesting place that I'm looking there to see. This shows actually what amateurs are seeing and estimating for brightnesses for this comet. Unfortunately, 252P linear is way deep down in the southern hemisphere right now. Matter of fact, today, over the next 24 hours, it passes 3 degrees from the southern celestial pole. And it's really going to be trucking, though, and it's going to be heading northward. Here in southern Spain, about latitude 31 north, I believe we are. I'm thinking we might be able to get a look at it by this time this week if it's clear. It'll be coming up through the constellation Scorpius, and it should be at its highest right around 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. It should be due south. Incidentally, the moon is going to be waning gibbous by that time, and so it's going to be right around that area. If you know where Mars and Saturn are right now in the morning sky, the comet's going to be joining that. It's interestingly, the moon is actually going to occult the comet. I forget the date. It's on my blog on Universe Today for Antarctica, but it's going to be however, a 6 magnitude comet. I'm seeing some pretty good images already online from people down in New Zealand and Australia. They always seem to get the good comets down there. But we should be getting a good binocular view. I don't think it's going to be getting any brighter than what we're getting right now. About, we might squeeze another 5th or 4th magnitude out of it. It's going to be a bright binocular comet, but it's definitely going to be worth keeping an eye on these two things, following the ExoMars mission, and incidentally, the closest comet approach ever in recorded history, of course, was Comet Lexell. Back in 1770, this comet had a coma larger than the planet Earth and passed 6 lunar distances away. That's 2.2 million kilometers away. That's the closest in recorded history. Probably there have been closer approaches. Well, Earth has probably been smacked by a few comets in its history. There's some theories that's maybe where our oceans and water had come from, at least in part. These we don't consider recorded comets. And also I'd like to point out that a comet like BA14 PanSTARRS being only 12th magnitude, even a few decades ago, you notice these comets with designations like linear and PanSTARRS. These are all acronyms of automated sky surveys that are looking for these things. We're seeing a lot of these smaller, fainter comets that a few decades ago would have probably passed right by. There was a close comet, the former record holder that's being broken this next week, that was the second closest comet to the Earth, was a comet called, it's a really tongue twister name, IRAS Iraqi Alcock. And the reason it had those 3 names, it was discovered by an infrared observatory, the IRAS, in 1983, and it was discovered by 2 amateur astronomers all within 24 hours, so it got all 3 names wrapped into it. It was back in 1983, I was in high school, and this was a comet that came by Earth. Now, this was pre-Twitter, pre-internet, we got our information. Maybe you had the old phone messaging service or AOL dial-up. I don't think that even existed yet back then. I know there was a pre-message board some people were on in the 1980s to get this kind of astronomical information disseminated out there. I got it from the Bangor Daily News, and we heard about it. I think we had one more day to observe it. The comet came by that fast and that quick. When a comet comes by Earth that quick, usually it's only bright for a few nights and it's gone. Kind of Hyakutake back in '98 was kind of like that. We had only a few weeks to observe it. It kind of came up out of nowhere. And those are kind of the most fascinating comets there. Oh, I can see we've got the invite for Universe Today. All right, going to wrap this up. Going to give it about a pre-1 minute warning here. If anybody has any questions out there, I see we've got a fair amount of viewers out there tonight. And then otherwise, we're going to be out there on the weekly Space Hangout, mostly talking these comets, ExoMars missions, anything else I get assigned for. That's what's been on my radar this week. Again, we're here in Seville, Spain. I didn't know that until a few weeks ago that they shot part of Star Wars. And at first I thought it was the Phantom Menace. Somebody corrected me. It was actually part of the Naboo scenes from the planet Naboo in Attack of the Clones here at the Plaza España in Seville. We were there today, and we actually had fun kind of trying to match up. Gibraltar and Morocco, we're definitely, well, we have to return our rental car that we're picking up this next week in Gibraltar. So I'm going to say yes, we're going to be in Gibraltar, and our next Airbnb we're staying at is very close. I want to do Morocco because I've never been there, and just to kind of check it off would be cool. I don't know if we're going to hop over there for a day or two. I'd kind of like to do a little longer. I think after we're going to be in Spain for another month. There's still some stuff we want to see here. Mostly we're staying around Andalusia. We're waiting for the rest of the northern hemisphere to warm up basically before we go north, because we don't like cold. We've done enough cold in our life. We've done Maine. We've lived in Maine, in Alaska, and been to Iceland and been everywhere that it's cold. So I think we're not going to be heading northward. So Morocco would be a good bet, because that's south still for March, and it's not blazing hot down there yet either. So I've been watching the temperatures. They only let me stay in Morocco for a day. Interesting. I think when I looked at it, the visa was similar to Europe. Was like for U.S. citizens anyway. It was a 60 or 90-day entry visa. So I don't think. But you could day trip over. That's kind of cool that you did that. I've never done as far as Africa. I've done Egypt. I've done Djibouti. That was with the military, and I've done Kenya. But I've never done. I'd like to do Morocco. There's more Star Wars stuff in Tunisia too, so I'd like to do that. But all right. Well, it's been good talking to you guys. Maybe I'll talk more about travel sometimes too, because it is kind of interesting, just the things we're doing here. But I'll let you go, and I'll see you on the weekly Space Hangout.